they would see a facility of this type in Virginia Beach being an asset for the entire region and would and support the effort being made by the City Council in this regard. A little bit about Southeastern Virginia. Again, as we begin to define the marketplace, you're looking at now 3 million people. You're looking at a market that does not have an arena greater than 12,000 seats. There's not a state-of-the-art facility in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia other than what's at the University of Virginia there at the JPJ. And so there have been a number of events and activities that have occurred that if they are going to occur in the state of Virginia, they will tend to go to Charlottesville and bypass our market completely. With 3 million people, there is definitely efforts and capacity within that population to support a major league franchise. As I mentioned earlier, there's strong corporate support in that market, well over approximately 10 Fortune 500 companies. You can see the profile of strong economic numbers and population demographics when you look at the market. And we also bring a strong regional commitment that I mentioned earlier from the private sector, who is very much in favor of moving into an area whereby major hubs are going to be created. And we wanted to make sure that a combined MSA between Hampton Roads and Richmond will create that gateway that's going to be important to the Mid-Atlantic as well as to the Commonwealth of Virginia. You look at then where we stand with other communities around and within the country that have at least one or more professional sports franchise. You can see now we become the largest market in the country without a professional team. There are 22 markets that we are larger than. One that we've benchmarked, of course, just because of their most recent success has been Oklahoma City. You can see they're down between Nashville and Jacksonville, and where we are in terms of Southeastern Virginia. Very strong demographics, very strong economic numbers, very strong position in the marketplace that definitely substantiates the potential for us as a community and as a region to support a major league franchise. I mentioned earlier, and we'll do again here with regard to our corporate profile, 10 Fortune 500 companies headquartered within the market with substantial annual sales exceeding $103 billion in sales, more than 178 total businesses in terms of our business capacity, significant number of companies that are generating significant amount of revenues within the marketplace. And you can see there are some very large employers that fall within our market as well. And listed there you see the current Fortune 500 companies that are located within our market. Another area that becomes a very important piece when you begin to look at sports franchises, its capacity with regard to media and TV in particular. This designated market area, the DMA, it's a way in which the Nielsen ratings describe and define markets. You're looking at, again, our market, our Southeastern Virginia market, and looking at key indicators, again, comparing us to Oklahoma City and the Tulsa market, where we have seen some recent success with what has occurred with the Oklahoma Thunder in particular. You can see major indicators that define both markets. You can see in each of those we are in a much better market position than they are, particularly when you look at population, households with income greater than $100,000, average income, the per capita income, and we squeak out the distance between with Richmond versus their distance with Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Again, giving us good data with regard to our, again, TV potential and market potential for what would and could be the opportunity for a professional sports franchise in evaluating our marketplace. The corporate community, I think, is well behind this, and we've gotten good comments out of them with regard to what it would mean for them as a company, both in the standpoint of their capacity as a company to compete, but also from their standpoint of being able to recruit the best of the best in terms of the workforce. These amenities that are this amenity that's being considered and those amenities that are in other markets become important quality of life aspects that create not only a community but also create the opportunity for employment and for the recruitment of a workforce that, becomes the life of any community in which they live and work. Describe this next area as opportunities. We do that because we've had a proven track record over a number of years. In particular, here you see the Virginia Beach Amphitheater, or better known as the Farm Bureau Live, where we've had 16 years of success, where this facility has proven itself not only to be a financial windfall for the city, a great amenity for the city, but also from a financial standpoint, you can see it does attract customers and has gotten major recognition from the industry. We've seen and have data that shows that in large concerts we are attracting individuals out of the Richmond market. In a large concert there, you can see 18% of the tickets that are sold are being sold out of the Richmond area. We're fortunate that, again, having Live Nation as our partner in this endeavor, that it continues to rank as one of their top 5 venues in their portfolio of assets. We also have seen over the years that it's been in play that a number of concerts have occurred there, number of tickets sold, and again, as I mentioned, getting and continues to receive excellent reviews from the industry for a top quality venue in which to perform and play. This is also extended in terms of how we look at, with this opportunity, having additional capacity for us not only to expand on concerts and entertainment venues, of course those at the amphitheater being primarily during the summer. With an arena, of course, now we can look at year-round opportunities where typically major acts and concerts, they set out their tour schedule to either be a summertime tour or a tour that's suitable for an indoor venue. Of course, they being the artists, don't necessarily go back and forth. They just make that decision at the beginning of their tour season. So we would have, in this case, theoretically, the benefit of having concerts that are primarily set for summer tour to offer those concerts and events at the amphitheater during the summer, and those concerts that are primarily programmed for indoor venues having the benefit of the state-of-the-art facility that this new arena would offer to the market, and quite frankly in a market whereby those events are now currently bypassing us. As I mentioned, right now those concerts, when they look at the East Coast, they'll come through Washington, D.C., they may go out to Charlottesville, and then they end up going down to either Raleigh, Greensboro, or Charlotte, completely bypassing our marketplace. So a number of entertainment opportunities that are occurring are bypassing us, and this, of course, gives us that chance to be within that tour to also bring in new entertainment that's not currently in the marketplace here to Virginia Beach and Hampton Roads. There are a number of athletic events that could occur that are outside of any sports franchise, with various college conference championships. There are a number of NCAA, which you all well know, it's well documented. I think Jim Ricketts will attest to this, that one of our driving conference and meeting areas or segments is in the sports marketing area, and having now the space available in the convention center, the synergy of now having assembly space adjacent to that, will definitely and without doubt create opportunities for us to increase the number of sporting opportunities that could and will occur in the city, whether they be NCAA, professional, Olympic, or tournament play. So I mentioned the idea of the site being co-located adjacent to the convention center gives again additional potential for additional bookings and unique conferences and meetings and assembly and exhibitions, adding and expanding upon which is already a fairly successful visitor delegate count that we receive right now, second only to I think the aquarium, which is probably driving about 650, 700,000 people to the city. But now having this in close proximity with an assembly space, an arena, an event center, it really adds to the capacity of what the convention center can produce, along with what the arena brings along with that. Fan Fest become an act or event that can occur, as well as other religious and corporate meetings that are now again unable to come to the city because of the lack of facilities. We've gotten good reaction in the into the athletic sporting world. This is Jim Swafford, the commissioner of the ACC, who has stated that with the proximity of a facility and with two teams or two universities within the conference, location within the state, would make Virginia Beach a very attractive location for them to bring conference championships and tournaments to our market and to our city. Very encouraged by those comments, and I think something that gives us great interest to want to continue to pursue this opportunity. Partners. At this point, I want to pass the podium over to Peter Luco. As I mentioned earlier, Peter Luco is the president and CEO of Comcast Spectacor. He will now take the podium and talk a little bit about Comcast Spectacor and some of their thoughts about participating in this opportunity.
We welcome you, Mr. Luco. I'm glad to have you in Virginia Beach.
Thank you. Thanks, Warren. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council, for giving us the opportunity to meet you and present here today. I'll begin by saying some months ago when Sims Hines at HKS approached us and said, would you guys like to be involved in a project to potentially build a first-class, state-of-the-art arena, 18 to 20,000 seats in Virginia Beach? We jumped on it. And Live Nation and ourselves jumped on it for a couple reasons. One, both of our companies do a lot of business in Hampton Roads, and I'll get into that in my presentation. And secondly, instinctively, Mike Evans and I knew that this was one of the largest underserved markets in North America. 3 million people without an 18 to 20,000 seat first state class of the art stadium and arena. It's not here. And we thought this was a perfect opportunity to become involved and jump on this opportunity with Sims. And at the time, Sims said, we don't know where it's going, but what do you guys want to do? And we said we wanted to be involved. So it's very important that we see the opportunity and that we do business here locally. If I can start, I'll give you a little bit of a background on our companies, where we've came from, where we're going, and how we may be able to help here in Virginia Beach. We are Comcast Spectacor. We're a joint venture of Spectacor, which is essentially Ed Snyder, who's been a sports entrepreneur for years, and Comcast, the media giant. Our company was founded, and I think it's an interesting story. Our company was founded in 1967 when Ed Snyder mortgaged his home, got an advance on food service commissions, and took on some partners to buy a team in the National Hockey League in the city of Philadelphia, which did not have one hockey rink, not one. But he saw the opportunity, saw how hockey was doing in Boston, saw how it was doing in New York, just some couple hours up the road, and founded the team, got the expansion franchise, and we began in '67. Shortly thereafter that, in 1971, the Spectrum, which was our arena in Philadelphia at the time, a public-private partnership, went bankrupt, and Ed Snyder took the Spectrum out of bankruptcy, paying 100 cents on the dollar. So if you look at who we are today, and I've been with the company since 1985, we're a company that's roots are in sports and entertainment since the 60s. Okay, we've been in this business. This is what we do. This is what we do when we wake up, and this is what we think about when we go to bed at night. To fast forward, because I don't think you want to hear the whole history, but 1996, we were approached by Comcast to do a partnership with them. At the time, the Philadelphia 76ers were for sale. They had an opportunity to buy them. And at that time, if you look at where cable was, you're competing with the dish. So the idea for them would be, we'll buy the Philadelphia 76ers, we'll combine them with the Spectrum, the Philadelphia Flyers. We were building the Wells Fargo Center at the time, and then combine all those assets and then start our sports network, which we did. Comcast Sportsnet, we were the first network that Comcast had. There's now some 12 of those across the country. So really, we were a merger of content, who we were as teams and arenas and booking shows, and a cable provider, meaning a content provider to the masses. So those are our roots. To fast forward again, and I'm going to go into our combined entities, but today we do over $4 billion and responsible for $4 billion in revenue. So we have grown that much. since our inception. Here's our parent, Comcast NBC Universal. Again, coming in from the cable content internet side, the merger, NBC Universal, gives us a number of resources that we can tap into all over the country and the world. If you look at the number of networks under the Comcast NBC Universal merger, it gives us the opportunity to not only have that relationships with the content, but also maybe create some events in our local markets, which are obviously very important to our community. Comcast Spectacor, that's our company. That's the company that I am president of. Ed Snyder's chairman. Here are our entities, and here's where we begin to get into the nitty-gritty of where this can help in Virginia Beach. We own the Philadelphia Flyers, and one of the various hats I own, I sit on the Board of Governors of the National Hockey League. We did own the Philadelphia 76ers, sold them a year ago, and I was also a member of that board as well when we owned the team. Comcast Sportsnet, I had mentioned earlier, the networks. Again, networks are important in that it gives you the opportunity to promote your events, okay? Promote the concerts, be able to promote your teams and promote all the events that are in an arena. I'll mention Skate Zone briefly. We're a very community-orientated company, and we get very involved locally in the Philadelphia market and other markets. In this case, it's mostly hockey and figure skating, but we're also very involved all over the country in other community efforts. Ovations, very important. That's our food service company. We do food service mainly for stadiums, arenas, convention centers, some casinos. Ovations presently has 4 accounts in the marketplace in sports and entertainment venues. So we've been here for a period of time with Ovations at the ballpark, Constant Center, and the Scope, etc. Front row marketing, very, very important. Very, very important. When you build one of these major arenas, a big revenue source to make this thing work for the facility, for the team, and for the city is the naming rights. It's the selling of boxes, the selling of club seats, the selling of tickets. We have a company that does this throughout the world. We've done a lot of the naming rights deals. We do a lot of the club seating, suite sales, and we have great research to be able to look in to say, what can you get, for lack of a better term, in a city like Virginia Beach? So front row marketing obviously would be a very, very important part of getting this facility built. Global Spectrum, and I'll get into this briefly, that's the entity that would be managing the arena. Just to finish up, Pacquiolin, we're in the ticketing business, mostly in colleges. Development and data collection is our expertise. Xfinity Live, very interesting, just recently in Philadelphia. This is a new division of ours. We've just opened up 60,000 square foot development, bars, restaurants. We have an NBC Sports Arena with a 35-foot HD TV, a real complex for people to come and enjoy themselves around a sporting event or a concert or a family show. It's been very, very successful in its initial stages. Our partner is the Cordish Company out of Baltimore, who did the power plant area. That's been very, very successful. They've done a number of these throughout the country. But this is a new area really built around sports and entertainment, and we're looking to do this in other places as well. Global Spectrum. Global Spectrum would be our company, our entity, that would run the arena in Virginia Beach. We're in 112 venues throughout the world. Last fiscal year, we produced over 12,000 events, did over 20 million people, 323 million in ticket sales, 633 million in gross revenue. Okay, those are all big numbers. But as we say, as an arena manager, you're supposed to be afraid of the dark, meaning you want an event every night of that year. You want something going on if you could possibly do it 7 days a week. So if you look at all those numbers and all that, it really just means that our expertise is in revenue generation and bringing events to facilities. To accent a bit of our Hampton Roads presence, we're at the Constant Convocation Center, which we've done tremendous business. Sandler Center for the Performing Arts right here. Our partner, and Mike Evans is here today from Live Nation. Farm Bureau Live at Virginia Beach, the amphitheater. Of all the amphitheaters that Live Nation has throughout the world, this one is one of the top 5. So obviously, if you look at our combined entities, we've been here, we've done business here, and we really, really believe in the marketplace. This is such an untapped resource without a major venue. Live Nation, it can't get any bigger than Live Nation. If you look at what this company has accomplished in rolling up promoters and talent agencies over the years, it's unprecedented in our business, and I've been in the business over 30 years. The largest producer and promoter of live events in the world. There's nobody bigger than Live Nation. If you look at a company that produces 20,000 shows for more than 2,000 artists, and what's really important is you look at this and equate it to baseball. Live Nation starts in clubs and small venues and builds acts, and then they graduate to the mid-level arenas and then to the major arenas. So they invest in the infrastructure in the business, the farm system, and as those players grow up, they become big league players and play the major venues. So they invest in our business and they invest in the future of our business. I think that's very, very important. And as you can see, Live Nation spends $3.2 billion annually in talent acquisition. I mean, that's just an amazing number. And you can see that they operate, book, and have equity interest in 142 venues. So if you look at our combined entities, we're very vertically integrated, from bringing an act up, to being involved in pro sports, to booking arenas, to being able to market arenas, to sell the club seats, to do the naming rights, to do the food service, to do every element that there is into making an arena successful. Right? Content is king, we all know that. You got to bring events because this is for the public and the community, but also this is a very sophisticated business behind that. And if you're going to be successful, you've got to be efficient in all facets of these business. So as we come here today, and we're in those beginning stages. We've had meetings with the city, HKS, and the various consultants. We've all done our homework behind the scenes and done our pro formas, worked it, researched the market together independently. But today, as we begin to go forward in our excitement for the project, I just wanted to report to you, here's in our initial stages what we see and what we see maybe we can bring to the table here to make this project successful. Comcast Spectra Core/Global Spectrum, we will lease and operate and program the arena. Okay, plain and simple. Just operate it, run it, make it happen. Take the risk. Take the operational risk. Okay, we have many clients in cities where we don't take that risk. In fact, in some cases, we get paid a percentage to reduce deficits. But in this case, we would certainly take all operational risk to book the concerts, the athletic events. I mean, there's so many different types of athletic events, whether it's NCAA play, regional games, and the like, collegiate sports. This is a great hub to look at for that type of event. I mean, you're selling the beach, Hampton Roads, and the marketplace. Family shows, corporate events, and most importantly, community programs. I think one thing we do very, very well, and we do it here now, we are part of the community. We employ hundreds of people here right now locally. They're all part of this community. It's important to us that we do community events so that the community is comfortable coming to the facility, that they own the facility, that they have a stake in that facility. So it's not just the big events, but is it high school graduations? Is it religious events? Is it whatever is important to that community? We bring that here. Comcast Spectra Global Spectrum will commit to pursuing a professional sports franchise for the arena and do a 25-year lease term. Okay, we will pursue the opportunity for a pro sports team. Again, we're in those early stages. All right, we have to have a rock-solid plan, have to be working with the members of the council, the mayor, and then put that forward, but we're prepared to pursue that. And obviously, listen, we're talking to people in sports, we're in sports, so I think we know where there's opportunity potentially. Guaranteed annual lease payment, we will pay a guaranteed to be negotiated lease payment to the city. Recap, we see more than 200 events annually in this facility, and we certainly have an incredible knowledge of the market, being here and working the market. To base that on 1.4 million visitors annually, some years a little less, some years a lot more, We see a lot of upside here. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll guarantee the annual operating costs so that the city never has to go back into its coffers to fund this arena and support it. So with that, I thank you again. Thanks for having us, and we look forward to working further with you.
Thank you very much. Warren, you have some more comments?
Just some wrap-up slide. A couple of wrap-up points here, Mayor and members of council, and thank you, Peter, so much for that and your confidence in the marketplace, and it's been a pleasure working with you and your team. We have set what we would like to call financial principles as a guidance here, and the authority would like to, obviously negotiate and present to council at the appropriate time a term sheet that will ensure all city financial obligations are met in accordance with these principles. And so, in other words, we see the Virginia Beach Arena will, in essence, generate sufficient revenues to meet all debt service obligations as well as generate excess revenue to the city. We, and having this conversation with the mayor, and the mayor's made this very clear, we see this as a very important principle, that this facility and the revenues generated from the facility and as a part of this facility will more than guarantee any debt service obligations that may occur as a part of this facility. We also see it as an important principle that there are a substantial increase in existing city revenues as a result of this facility, i.e. the various revenue streams that you see listed there, that they are enhanced by this facility and the activities that occur within the facility. And we have had preliminary talks, and I think by evidence of his presence here today, want to see and pursue any opportunities for additional support, whether it be with the Commonwealth of Virginia, with our private sector partner, or with other potential communities that may want to participate in this effort. So we do want to make that fact as a guiding principle known as a part of this, and hope that council will definitely support and endorse that activity. The other is that it's very important that we identify what are all the potential revenue streams that could be generated, will be generated by this facility as revenue streams that will be negotiated and more importantly, used as means in which to service the debt service. So, we will do the appropriate due diligence needed and associated with the project to make sure various revenue streams are analyzed and also identified as potential ways in which to add capacity into the revenue streams of the city. The economic impact we've had, as I mentioned earlier, the good fortune of having Dr. Cook participate in this and having him do some initial research for us. Here are some of the key impacts. I believe you have his study there with you at your dais, but looking at the Hampton Roads region from a job creation standpoint, and quite frankly, if this isn't not about job creation, I don't know what is here, and very important, at least from the economic development standpoint, we have the potential here to create a number of jobs associated with the project, over 1,200 into the greater market. Many of them will accrue into the city of Virginia Beach. You're looking at direct operations of the revenue. These are revenues generated from the facility itself. Looking at potential of property values, also one-time, growing as a result of the facility. These are not necessarily revenues that will go to the operation of the facility. These accrue to the overall market, both in Hampton Roads and in Virginia Beach. There are significant revenues during the construction period. You can see during the 24 months or 25 months or so that it's anticipated for this facility to build and develop, that there are some jobs obviously associated during the construction period that are substantial, and also economic impacts that will derive from that construction activity as a result of the arena. And the full report is available to you, and Dr. Cook would be here today. He had a conflict and expects to be back in town tomorrow for any follow-ups that are needed. Next steps, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we would like your endorsement for us to continue to work as the development authority to review and negotiate a financial structure, develop and present a draft term sheet to council, identify those available resources that may be available within the state, community, and private sector, conduct and make sure we have the appropriate outreach with all the various community stakeholders, and also importantly make sure we actively engage and inform the public during this process. At the same time, we've been assured, and Comcast Spectacor Live Nation would want to engage in conversations with us in terms of negotiating a final proposal, and also be in a position to be able to shore up and negotiate terms with any potential tenants that may also be a part of this project. So in conclusion, if I can quickly just wrap up here, and again, a unique, once-of-a-lifetime, I think, opportunity whereby the capacity of these two entertainment companies with the depth of their experience in the field to be our partner to develop a major arena here in the region, giving us a chance to attract events that are currently not in the marketplace into the community. They're providing guarantees in association with lease revenues and operational costs. Obviously, the economic impacts speak for itself and been brought forward evident through the study done by Dr. Cook. We also, of course, as we've always talked about and wanting to see the resort area become a year-round destination, see a way in which to go a long way in filling that vision with the activities and events that will occur in the facility. Obviously, this brings about a substantial regional and statewide attraction for us, giving us, as you can imagine, if there is a sports team at the end of the day, national and international exposure. Looking at us being able to look at some of the facilities and assets that are currently in the market, whether they be garages, roads, capitalizing those assets now on a year-round basis versus during the height of the summer season. Looking at, again, just the expansion of entertainment, family shows, athletic events that will drive to this facility. Of course, having, again, with Comcast Spectacor as the operator and Live Nation as the content provider, you have the best of both worlds, being able to make that happen. And then, as has been stated, there are only 30 cities in the country that have either NBA teams or NHL teams, and that will put us in that club, if you will, of communities that host major league sports teams as a part of their community profile. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, that's the briefing today. I do want to say that we are going to meet with the media after the session in Building 19, and those individuals involved in the presentation will take their questions, the media, in that session later after the presentation today.
You got a few questions here.
Sure.
Bill?
I've got a couple, and I'll start by saying that I think this is a great idea. Anyone who wants to come and build a $350 million arena in the city of Virginia Beach, I think that's a wonderful thing. I think it's great if we get an NBA team or an NHL team or anything like that. But that's with the caveat of private equity building it. And my first question is, and I've got 3 or 4 because I'm not sure I understand where we're coming from on some of the numbers presented, but the first question is, who's going to pay for this?
Well, there were no numbers presented, and I think the idea of who will pay for it will be in a negotiation with the team that we have here and the city.
Let me first stop you because on a couple of your slides it says opportunity to develop an estimated $350 million 18,500 seat arena. So that tells me that we're looking at an estimated cost of $350 million.
Right. There's been no design work done. That's a thumbnail based on what the industry average has been on current facilities in the marketplace. There's been no construction documents drafted or done, and so that's an average of what the most recent facilities have been in the marketplace.
And again, there's nothing wrong with an estimated cost, but my question was who's going to pay for it, and the answer is we don't know yet. But estimated, we're looking at $350 million, 18,500. Now, I've looked at a lot of the MSA area, and as I understand it, the City of Virginia Beach, $435,000. If you look at Hampton Roads, we refer to ourselves as $1.2 million. If you go
1.7.
Okay, 1.7 if you take up to Williamsburg and you start going south. 1.2 if you're looking at what we call Hampton Roads, the common area. But I don't understand how we're getting to 3 million. So if you can explain how we're getting to 3 million, that would be...
We basically used the same methodology that was used with Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and looking at the same market area between the distance between Tulsa and Oklahoma, which is approximately 100 miles. We've taken that same profile and applied that here in our marketplace, so that extends our market into the Richmond area.
Okay.
It's also very much consistent with some of the work that's being done right now by members of the private sector about merging the two markets into one.
Well, if we're doing that, then I'd like for us to, in our analysis in this book, when we compare it, I'd like to look at the comparison we do with some of the other cities. Sacramento, for example, their MSA, their true MSA is 2.2, 2.4 million. But if you go out 100 miles, then you're pulling in San Francisco Bay and you're pulling in Fresno. San Francisco with 5 million people, Fresno with 1. You look at the total MSA, if you're looking at it the way we're looking at it, you're looking at 10 million people. So we're comparing it one way for us, but a different way for them. Again, I think we need to look at what we're using as MSA and make it apples to apples, because the comparison here is definitely not apples to apples, and it's somewhat misleading. So that's my...
Well, there's no effort on our part to mislead anyone. So, I mean, if there's a way in which we can answer your question, we certainly will address that.
Well, I'm looking for an apples-to-apples comparison, and obviously we're not doing that with this. If we're talking about Sacramento and their true MSA, let's go out 100 miles and include San Francisco Bay Area. Let's include Fresno. I mean, again, same type of thing. Those are just the start of my questions. The next thing is, have we talked to the Navy and asked them what are the height restrictions on this? Because the height restriction when we were going to do a convention center hotel, I believe, was right at 180 feet. On this right here, we're roughly a quarter, half a mile closer to the Navy base. And as of noon yesterday, when I had talked to the Navy, they had not heard from us. And I called Mr. Herbert and asked him if we talked to the Navy. At the time, and he said we had. And when I talked to him, they said the only conversation they had was Mr. Mathias had talked to Bobby Roundtree at one of the meetings 2 weeks ago. And all they said was, hey, we've got a super secret thing coming down. It's about an arena. Have you heard anything? No. Well, keep your ear to the ground. You might hear something soon. Well, have we talked to them about what the height restrictions are going to be and the FAA on what the height restrictions are going to be? Sacramento has a lot of trains. We have a lot of planes. So from that standpoint, I don't see a major issue. And again, I mean, I want you to know I'm very supportive of this if it's done right and the deal is a private equity deal where somebody comes in, builds a nice arena, brings us the LA Lakers or whomever. I'd be happy with it. Heck, I'd even take them out to dinner and buy them some really nice wine. I think it's a great concept and a great idea, but when we look at our taxpayers to flip the bill for something like this, we're $1.6 billion backlog in local road projects. We can barely afford to pay our teachers, our police, our fire, our EMS. We've got a lot of shortfalls. So anyways, my next question is, I'm looking at this, and in one of the things we talk about the Baltimore area. Well, if you go 100 miles from Baltimore, you're now including D.C. and the whole metropolitan area there. Apples to apples comparison is what I'd like to see on this, and I'd rather not have it where it's misleading the way it's stated today. And then I'd also like to know, how will this compete with the Convention Center, the Sandler Center, the Farm Bureau? Because a lot of the things that we mentioned in this presentation we're currently doing at the Convention Center, the Farm Bureau, the Amphitheater, and the Sandler Center.
Yeah, this is not to duplicate what's already in the market. What we're looking at is bringing what's not currently in the market with this facility. You're not going to get major acts like YouTube, and well, you know this better than me, playing in the Amphitheater or the Sandler Center or the Convention Center. So the goal here is not to move and shift what's currently in the market, is to bring those events and activities that are not in the market into Hampton Roads, into Virginia Beach. So that's what the goal of the facility will do and what it's designed to do.
Okay, and then we have $61,000 per year for the, I'm not sure if that's household income or annual income. If we're going all the way to Richmond, are we looking at that as our full MSA and including all of those numbers? Are we looking specifically at Virginia Beach? Where are we coming up with that number? Because it's different than what's presented in our 5-year plan and in our budget, yearly budget.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're looking at. I know that we are able to have information that's more current than the census. One of our consultants was a consultant, or actually a former employee of Walmart, handled all of their strategic relocation, and during their heyday, also the president of Blockbuster. They have proprietary information of every household in the U.S., and they had the data in which we could draw from that's more current than what you're going to get from census data with regard to the profile of the various markets.
But is
so
that
we've been
just
able to
Virginia
use
Beach,
more
or is that
current
all the way up to
information.
Richmond? Which area are we looking at for that average?
Which report? I mean, I'm not sure which.
I'm looking at the information you provided in your brief today and the information in here where we talk about $61,000.
Warren, if you'll just provide that,
Yeah,
to a
I
little,
think that'd
I'll
be
get that
easy.
sent to you, Bill.
Right.
Okay, and then my last thing is, have we looked at the impact of sequestration, what the Navy's getting ready to do over the next 10 years, and the impact on what we're talking about here? I mean, again, if this is done with private support, private equity, I fully support it. And I'd take the whole group out to dinner on my dime, buy them some wonderful wine, and show them a good time in Virginia Beach, because I think it's a fabulous idea, and it's a direct economic engine and a driver for our community. But if they're asking our taxpayers to do it, then I'm going to have to take a different look at this and open it up as if it's our representatives' money, because it's taxpayer money.
Thanks. That it, Bill?
That's it.
Bob?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for a great presentation, gentlemen. My only request is that we bring our friends and partners from the Navy into the process as early as possible. Given the location of it and everything, I just think that would be, in our mutual best interest to be doing that. And the other thing is also when you're doing, crunching the numbers and thing, if we can have an impact analysis on, for instance, of increased needs for public safety and things of that way, so we could just kind of have a handle on what's going on. But thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you, Bob. John?
Well, first of all, I just want to explain to the audience why I was talking to the city attorney. I wanted to make sure that my position, since we weren't provided this on Friday, and I'm sure it was ready on Friday, I didn't have the opportunity
He
to
didn't
know.
complete it until Sunday.
If you could just wait till I finish, please. Thank you. I didn't have the advantage to know that one of the partners was NBC, which is also a subsidiary of GE. So I was trying to figure out whether or not I had a conflict. But since my stock value is not 3%, though I wish it was, the dividends are lower than I wish they were, I don't exceed the $10,000 threshold on dividends, so I can't participate. But that was the reason for my question. But what I would like to know is, I hope that since this obviously runs contrary to a number of studies done by some very prestigious think tanks, and I have a lot of respect for Dr. Cook, and his economic analysis has also told us that light rail doesn't make sense for Hampton Road. So I'm glad to see he's being so embraced here today, because I know we'll all want to know that he also doesn't embrace light rail. But what I would like to know is if we're going to go to some place like Heritage and have this analysis red teamed, and the reason why I say that is the data in the report said that Dr. Cook did not collect the data directly himself, but it was provided by partners who are submitters of the proposal. And I do think it probably would be worthwhile to have an independent assessment of the data itself. And so we know, in fact, that it, in fact, is reliable. But if you go to page 18 in this report, the financial report, which is in the end the essence of all the stuff. All the other stuff is fluff. This is the real meat. But on 18, if you take the inflation indicator used in the report of 2.8%, which is a number that you used in the report, or someone did, and you take the household median income in Virginia Beach at $48,705 in the year 2000, and you compound 2.8% over that 10-year period, the adjusted nominal income, which is what you would use, is $64,195. So the adjustment after inflation, which talks to purchasing power of families, is up 0.8%. It makes a big difference on a chart when you use constant dollars versus nominal dollars to represent the purchasing powers of families. So I think that kind of gives you the indication throughout the report. I've noticed several things where it's not clear. So I would hope that since we want to be good fiduciary stewards of the public's money, that we would invite someone like a Dr. Ron Utt or others at Cato or Heritage to red team this analysis so we can have an independent review of how reliable the analysis really is, and more importantly, the underlying data set upon which the conclusions are drawn. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? I would just like to say thank you very much for the report. Last Tuesday, the Vice Mayor and I met and got a general comments, and this was a little bit more detailed. I would sit back and say to you that the Vice Mayor was quicker than I was, and that I didn't like that. He said cash flow before I said cash flow. And that's what it's about. You know, if we get down to the question on how this is going to be paid for, it will be the people using it. And then we got to sit back and find out who will come up with the capital to invest as the people using it pay for it. And that's where we go from now. And I would sit back and say to you that, and this is the mayor speaking, I'm not speaking for the council, but I have great faith in the market in the Commonwealth of Virginia, in Hampton Roads, and in Virginia Beach. And I really do. You know, to sit back and tell you that things have been rosy in the last 4 or 5 years, that would be a misstatement. But have we done pretty well considering? Yeah, we have. And when you sit back and look at how we've benefited so much with our growth down the oceanfront and tourism in a recession that was the worst that has ever occurred in this country, and we sit back and see how we had a strength there. And if we can expand the numbers down at the ocean front with the threat of cuts coming from the military and so forth, I think that gives us an opportunity to diversify our income better and look ahead to the future. But to sit back, and one other thing I picked up on, to see Comcast willing to make a commitment of 25 years on a lease. And I think everyone at this table would say that is huge, because when debt is taken on, we're going to need an income stream to match the notes and the bonds that would be taken out for that project. And that's a huge commitment, Mr. Luca. I've really liked seeing that, and I've looked forward to the future. I would sit back and say to you, at this point, we'll let the Development Authority, along with the mayor and the vice mayor, step in now and work with you. I and the vice mayor will keep this council updated on a weekly basis as to how this is negotiated and to what will be going on in the future. If we make steps forward, you'll know about it. If we go backwards, you'll know about it. If we see this deal isn't going to happen because the cash flow is not there, the project will not happen. Again, I'm excited about the opportunity, but we got to make the right deal for the citizens of Virginia Beach. Bill, you have something to add and we'll move on.
One last question there. And based on your comments, it sounds like we may be looking at the Development Authority to finance this. My question was, who's going to pay for the building of it? If it is the Development Authority or if it is the city, I hope we put it out to referendum, because this would be over $10 million, and we'd let the taxpayers and the people who would have to pay the burden of it make that decision, because that's what our charter says we'll do.
It's certainly something to be
considered.
considered.
Those are the question. It wasn't on how we're going to pay for it. A 25-year lease is definitely a grand start, but it's who's going to pay for it. So
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We thank you for your presentation. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And I did mean that, Warren, on taking everybody out to dinner.
Hey, Mr. Luca, I'd just like to say
I don't believe that.